The lights on the bridge of Border Station 7 flickered as another solar wind burst washed over the shields. Admiral Ross stood at his usual spot near the main viewing screen, his forearms clasped behind his back. He watched the swirling purple clouds of the nearby nebula, finding peace in their endless dance. 50 years of service had taught him that quiet moments like these were rare and precious. "Admiral," the young sensor officer's voice cracked with excitement. "We're picking up an unknown signature at the edge of our space." Ross turned slowly, his scaled face remaining calm. Another day, another lost ship stumbling into Council space. "Show me," he ordered, walking to the sensor station with measured steps. The holographic display sprang to life, showing a large vessel moving at sublight speed. Its design was unlike anything in their database, sleek and angular, with what looked like massive engine ports at the rear. But what caught Ross's attention were the obvious weapon ports along its hull. Not hidden, not disguised, but proudly displayed. "Run a full scan," Ross ordered, his outer arms tightening slightly. Something felt wrong about this ship. Most new species they encountered had barely figured out basic space travel, let alone military vessels of this size. The sensor officer's fingers danced across his console. Suddenly, he jerked back as if burned. "Sir," the ship, "it's scanning us back. And their sensors are cutting through our encryption like it doesn't exist." Ross felt his scales bristle. No primitive species should have that capability. He turned to his communications officer. "Send the standard greeting package. Let's see who our visitors are." Before the officer could act, every screen on the bridge lit up with incoming data. The unknown ship wasn't waiting for their greeting. It was sending its own. Complex mathematical equations, star charts, and what appeared to be a complete star catalog from an unknown region of space flooded their systems. "Sir," the data analyst called out, her voice trembling slightly. "These star charts, they're from beyond the Great Void. We thought nothing existed out there." Ross walked to the main viewing screen, watching as the ship grew larger. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, absorbing the light from nearby stars. As it drew closer, he could make out markings along its side. Not decorative patterns like most species used, but what appeared to be identification numbers and letters in an unknown script. "Energy spike," the sensor officer shouted. "They're powering up their weapons systems." Ross raised his hand to calm his crew. "Hold position." If they wanted to attack, they would have done so already. Still, he noted how their visitors' weapon systems had activated faster than their sensors could track. That should have been impossible. The ship finally came to a stop, positioning itself at an angle that gave it a clear firing solution on the station, while keeping its engines ready for immediate departure. It was a textbook tactical position, one that spoke of centuries of space warfare experience. But that was impossible, wasn't it? A new signal came through, and this time it was a voice transmission. The computer took only seconds to translate it, and when it played through the bridge speakers, Ross felt his four hearts skip a beat. "Border Station 7, this is Captain Thomas of the Earth ship Vigilant. We noticed you were scanning us, so we thought we'd save time and send you our basics. Hope you don't mind the data dump. We found it speeds things up." The voice was calm, professional, and spoke perfect universal standard. Not the broken attempts most new species made, but with the fluid ease of a native speaker. "We're here looking for some missing ships of ours," the voice continued. "Colony vessels. Might have passed through here about 2 cycles ago. Would appreciate any information you could share." Ross looked at the weapon ports again, noting how they were aligned perfectly with his station's critical systems. This was no lost colony ship. This was a warship, crewed by a species that had somehow developed in complete isolation beyond the Great Void. And now they were here asking questions about missing colonists. As Ross prepared to respond, his tactical officer whispered something that made the room grow cold. "Sir, their weapons, they're not energy-based like ours. They're something else entirely. And our shields, the simulations show they wouldn't stop them." Ross straightened his uniform. In 50 years of service, he'd never encountered a first contact situation quite like this. As he opened a channel to respond, he couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change forever. Admiral Ross's reply was cut short by another voice from the human ship. This time, it was different, deeper, more authoritative. "This is Captain James Walker taking command." "Admiral Ross, I presume." "Let's speak plainly. We know our colonists passed through here. We tracked their quantum wake signatures all the way to this sector." The bridge crew of Border Station 7 exchanged nervous glances. Quantum wake tracking was supposed to be impossible. The Council's best scientists had tried and failed for centuries to develop such technology. "Captain Walker," Ross replied, keeping his voice steady, "your arrival is unexpected. Perhaps we could discuss this matter through proper diplomatic channels." A soft chuckle came through the speakers. "Admiral, we've spent 2 years following protocol, sending messages through your proper channels. No response. Now we're here in person, and suddenly you're interested in talking." Ross felt a chill run down his spine. The human knew about their communication protocols, which meant they'd been watching, learning, and waiting. But for how long? The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human vessel. Ross had expected to see strange aliens, but the humans looked surprisingly simple. 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces that showed both intelligence and determination. Captain Walker stood in the center, wearing a dark uniform with minimal decorations. Behind him, his crew worked at stations that seemed oddly familiar yet advanced beyond anything Ross had seen. "Let me show you something, Admiral," Walker said, gesturing to someone off-screen. A new image appeared, a grainy recording of 3 ships, clearly of older human design. They were being intercepted by Council patrol ships. These were our colony ships, the Hope, the Future, and the Promise. 15,000 civilians, families, children, scientists, farmers, all heading to their new home. Until they disappeared in your space. Ross quickly accessed the station's records. Yes, there had been 3 ships intercepted 2 cycles ago, but they had been classified as lost primitive vessels and redirected to Mining Outpost 227. Standard procedure for handling strays. "Captain, I assure you," Ross began, but Walker cut him off. "Every person on those ships had a quantum tracker implanted. Old tech by our standards, but good enough. They're alive, Admiral. They're all alive, but they're not where they're supposed to be, and their vital signs suggest they're under stress." The implications hit Ross like a plasma burst. If the humans could track their people's life signs across light years of space, what else could they do? And more importantly, why were they being so restrained in their approach? As if reading his thoughts, Walker smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. "We could have come in shooting, Admiral. That's what your people would have done, isn't it? But we're giving you a chance to fix this peacefully." The sensor officer suddenly jerked in his seat. "Sir." Multiple spatial distortions forming. Around the human warship, space itself seemed to tear open. 5 more ships emerged, each larger than the last. They moved with impossible precision, taking up perfect defensive positions around the first vessel. "A show of faith, Admiral," Walker said calmly. "These are just the ships I brought with me. The rest of the fleet is elsewhere. Now, about our colonists." Ross looked at the tactical display. The human ships had them completely surrounded, yet their weapons remained in standby mode. They were demonstrating power while showing restraint, a sophisticated approach that spoke of centuries of diplomatic experience. "Perhaps," Ross said carefully, "there has been a misunderstanding. If you could give me a few moments to consult with my superiors." Walker nodded. "You have 1 hour, Admiral. We've waited 2 years to find our people. We won't wait much longer." The screen went dark. Ross immediately sent an emergency signal to the Council. As he waited for their response, he watched the human ships on the display. They hadn't moved an inch from their positions, their formation so perfect it looked like they were frozen in space. But Ross knew better. He could sense the barely contained power in those vessels, the readiness to act if diplomacy failed. The humans had just changed every calculation, every assumption the Council had about emerging species. They weren't primitive newcomers to be guided or controlled. They were equals at best, superiors at worst, and they wanted their people back. Ross just hoped the Council would be wise enough to understand that before it was too late. The Grand Council chamber had never been this full. Representatives from 32 species filled the circular room, their voices mixing into a nervous murmur. At the center, a hologram showed the 6 human warships still holding their perfect formation around Border Station 7. Council leader Marcus pounded his gravity hammer on the floor. The room fell silent. His crystalline body reflected the chamber's lights as he turned to face the mining operations director. "Explain," Marcus said, his translator making the word sharp and cold. "Why were human colonists sent to mining outpost 227? The director, a tall insectoid named Reed, stepped forward. His antennae twitched nervously. "We followed standard procedure for lost ships. Their technology seemed primitive. They couldn't even communicate properly in Universal Standard." A new image appeared above the council floor. 3 old human colony ships. They looked simple, almost crude compared to the warships now in their space. Many council members nodded in agreement. Yes, those ships did look primitive. "Play the original intercept recording," Marcus ordered. The recording started. A human voice came through, speaking broken Universal Standard. "Please, we are peaceful, seeking new home." Reed gestured at the recording. "See, they were clearly primitive. We did them a favor by redirecting them to a safe location." The room grew colder as Captain Walker's voice suddenly cut through the speakers. "That recording has been edited." Every head in the chamber turned. Nobody had told them the humans were listening. On a new screen, Walker's face appeared, calm but stern. "Play the full recording, Director Reed. The one in your private files. The one where our colonists explained exactly who they were and where they came from. The one where they showed you their farming equipment, their terraforming technology, their medical facilities." Reed's antennae went completely still. How did you access my private files?" Walker smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "The same way we've been accessing all your files for the past 2 years. Your encryption is quaint. Now play the real recording, or I will." Reed's trembling fingers pressed a button. A new recording played. This time, the colonists spoke perfect Universal Standard. They showed detailed plans for their new colony. Their ships might have looked simple on the outside, but the interior shots revealed technology that matched anything the Council had. "They were farmers," Walker said quietly. "Scientists, doctors, people looking for a fresh start. And you sent them to work in your mines." Marcus turned to Reed, his crystalline body darkening with anger. "You deliberately hid this information from the Council." "The mining outposts needed workers," Reed said weakly. "These humans were strong, adaptable. Their technology could help increase production. It was a practical decision." "Practical." A new voice joined in. On another screen, an older human appeared. His uniform was different, decorated with more symbols of rank. "I am Admiral Thompson of the Earth Defense Fleet. Let me tell you about practical. We have 20 more ships waiting at the edge of your space. We have mapped every mining outpost, military base, and hidden installation in your territory. We know the access codes to your defense networks." "That's practical." The council chamber erupted in panic. Marcus struck his gravity hammer again, harder this time. "Why wait?" he demanded of the humans. "If you have such power, why spend 2 years watching?" Walker answered, his voice calm. "Because we wanted to be sure. Sure about who gave the orders. Sure about who knew what. Sure about who deserves punishment, and who was just following bad orders." He paused. "And because we wanted to give you a chance to fix this peacefully." Thompson nodded. "You have 1 more hour to return our people." Every minute after that, We start shutting down your systems. First your mining operations, then your defense networks, then your gravity generators. Everything we've learned about in the past 2 years. Marcus looked around the chamber. He saw fear in every face. Fear of these humans who had hidden in plain sight, learning, watching, waiting. These humans who had built warships that made their best vessels look primitive. These humans who had mastered technologies the Council had thought impossible. Release them, Marcus ordered. Release them all. Now. As the Council scrambled to comply, Walker's final words hung in the air. 2 years we waited, watching our people suffer. Remember that, Council members. Remember how patient we can be. And remember what happened when our patience ran out. Mining Outpost 227 hung in space like a dark metal spider, its 8 processing arms extending from a central hub. Inside the control room, Director Mills watched the security feeds with growing concern. The human colonists had stopped working. All of them. They stood perfectly still, facing the sky through the transparent dome sections. Make them get back to work, he ordered his security chief. But before anyone could move, every screen in the control room turned blue. The outpost's powerful mining lasers powered down. The processing machines went quiet. A human face appeared on the main screen. An older woman with gray hair and calm eyes. This is Dr. Anna Wells, speaking on behalf of the colonists. We'll be leaving now. Please don't interfere. Mills laughed. And how exactly do you plan to leave? Your ships are gone. You have no way off this rock. Look up, Anna said simply. Through the control room's viewport, space itself seemed to ripple. 20 human warships appeared, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. They were massive, each one larger than the outpost itself. Smaller ships launched from their sides, heading toward the dome sections where the colonists waited. Mills grabbed his communication unit. This is Director Mills requesting immediate military support. We are under attack. No one's coming, Anna said, still calm. Your defense fleet is busy with our other ships. Did you think these 20 were all we brought? The security feeds showed the colonists moving now, walking calmly toward the arrival bays. The outpost doors opened for them automatically, security systems shutting down as they passed. How are you doing this? Mills demanded. Our systems are encrypted. A younger human appeared next to Anna on the screen. Those encryptions were the first thing we cracked when we got here. We've been ready to leave for months. We just had to wait for the signal. Mills felt his blood run cold. Months. You've had control of our systems for months. We had to be sure everyone would get out safely, Anna explained. Your security patrols were predictable. Your system updates were regular. We used every work shift to learn more, prepare more. Some of us were computer experts before you forced us to mine your stones. Through the viewport, Mills watched the rescue ships dock with perfect precision. The colonists boarded in orderly groups, just as they had practiced in their minds during countless work shifts. But the translators, Mills protested weakly. You could barely speak. We learned your language in the first week, the younger human said. The broken speech, the confused looks, it was an act. We needed you to underestimate us, just like you underestimated our colony ships. The main screen split to show different areas of the outpost. In each one, colonists were boarding rescue ships. There was no panic, no rush. This wasn't a desperate escape. It was a carefully planned operation. Our ships didn't just look primitive, Anna continued. Those simple hulls hid terraforming equipment that could remake planets, medical bays that could regrow limbs. But you saw what you wanted to see, just another bunch of primitives to exploit. Mills slumped in his chair as the last group of colonists boarded. 2 years of forced labor, and all along they had been watching, learning, planning. The rescue ships detached from the outpost, returning to the waiting warships. One last thing, Anna said. Check your mining productivity records for the past 2 years. Mills pulled up the files. His eyes widened. Production had increased by 300% since the humans arrived. We could have sabotaged everything, the younger human said. Could have broken your machines, ruined your quotas. Instead, we improved them. We showed you what humanity can do, even as prisoners. Remember that. The screen went dark. Outside, the warships began to move away, their engines glowing with power that made the outpost's best technology look like children's toys. Mills watched them go, understanding finally hitting him. The humans hadn't just planned an escape. They had conducted a 2-year demonstration of their capabilities. They had proven they could infiltrate systems, improve technology, coordinate across light years of space, and build a rescue fleet right under the Council's nose. And as the last human ship vanished into the darkness, Mills realized this wasn't just a rescue. It was a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The Council's military headquarters buzzed with activity as the top weapons specialists from 12 species studied the scans of the human warships. General Stone, the Council's head of defense, stared at the holographic displays with all 4 of his eyes, trying to understand what he was seeing. Impossible, he muttered, watching a replay of a human ship disabling a Council drone vessel. Their weapons didn't even give off an energy signature. How did they pierce our shields? The chief weapons analyst, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical suit, moved forward. That's what makes them so dangerous, sir. They don't use energy weapons at all. These are projectiles. Projectiles. Stone laughed. Like throwing rocks. Our shields can stop anything moving at sublight speeds. Not these, the analyst said quietly. Watch this in slow motion. The replay showed a small object leaving the human ship. It moved impossibly fast, but instead of hitting the shield directly, it seemed to slip between the energy frequencies. The projectile struck the drone ship's engine with perfect precision, destroying it without damaging any other systems. They've mastered gravity manipulation, another scientist added. These projectiles shift their mass as they move. Our shields are designed to stop objects with consistent mass. These just slide right through. Stone felt his scales flatten against his skin. How many ships do they have now? A tactical officer brought up a new display. We've confirmed 40 warships in our space. But sir, our long-range sensors show more quantum disturbances at the edge of our territory. Many more. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just rescued their people, they had positioned an entire battle fleet around Council space. And those were just the ships they could detect. Suddenly, every screen in the room flickered. Admiral Thompson's face appeared, looking tired but determined. General Stone, I believe it's time we had a talk about your weapons. Stone straightened his uniform. You're spying on a private military briefing. This is an act of war. No, Thompson said calmly. This is a demonstration. Right now, one of our ships is going to fire at an empty space station in Sector 7. Watch your screens. The tactical display showed a human warship, far from any occupied areas, turning toward an abandoned research station. Something small left the ship, too fast to track. The station's shields flared, and then a small hole appeared in the main power core. The entire station went dark. A warning shot, Thompson explained. The projectile was designed to disable, not destroy. We can target any system, any component with perfect accuracy. Your shields, General Stone, might as well be windows for all the good they do against our weapons. Stone watched as his weapons specialists scrambled to analyze the attack. Why show us this? Why reveal your capabilities? Because I want you to understand exactly what you're dealing with, Thompson said. Those colony ships you captured, their weapon systems were turned off. Their shields were minimal. They were designed for peace. These ships, he gestured around him, these were designed for war. A war we haven't had to fight in a very long time, because most species are smart enough to talk first. Another screen lit up, showing Captain Walker. We could have destroyed that station, General. Could have destroyed every military installation we've mapped in your space. Instead, we shut down one power core in an empty station with no casualties. A message, Stone said, understanding finally dawning. Exactly, Thompson nodded. My weapons officers tell me your shield technology is impressive. Your energy weapons are advanced. But you've been fighting the same way for so long. You never thought about other approaches. You never considered that someone might come along with something completely different. The screen showed more human ships emerging from quantum space, each one positioned with strategic precision around key Council military installations. Not firing, not threatening, just waiting. The Council meets in 1 hour to discuss peace terms, Walker said. I suggest you advise them to be reasonable. We don't want war, General Stone. But if you force one, it will be very, very short. The screens went dark, leaving Stone staring at the tactical display. The human ships hung in space like silent warnings, their strange weapons ready but quiet. They had just revealed their greatest military advantage, not out of arrogance, but as a plea for peace. Stone reached for his communicator. The Council needed to understand. They weren't dealing with primitives anymore. They were dealing with a species that had turned their understanding of warfare upside down. And they had done it without firing a single shot in anger. The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council felt smaller than usual. The normal sounds of debate and discussion were replaced by nervous whispers. At the center table sat 3 humans, Captain Walker, Admiral Thompson, and Dr. Wells, representing the freed colonists. Their simple dark uniforms stood out among the elaborate robes and biosuits of the Council members. Council leader Marcus spoke first, his crystalline form pulsing with diplomatic lights. We are prepared to offer compensation for the wrongful detention of your people. Double wages for all work performed, plus. No, Dr. Wells cut him off quietly. You still don't understand. This isn't about money. She pressed a button, and the room's holographic system activated. Images appeared. Human colonists working in dangerous mine shafts, treating injuries with primitive tools, sleeping in cramped quarters. But there was something else in the images. Hidden hand signals between workers, secret meetings in dark corners, children being taught their history in whispers. For 2 years, she continued, we maintained our culture, our knowledge, our dignity. While your overseers thought we were breaking, we were planning. While they thought we were learning to be good slaves, we were learning about them. Walker nodded. Every mining accident we prevented, every production record we broke, every system we secretly improved. It was all a test. We needed to know if you would recognize us as equals. And we failed that test, Marcus said, understanding filling his voice. Yes, Thompson's word hung in the air. You had a chance to welcome a new species as friends. Instead, you enslaved them because they appeared weak. The Council members shifted uncomfortably. On the screens around the room, human ships still held position near every major Council installation. Their strange weapons remained ready but silent. An older Council member stood up. But surely now you see our strength. We have the largest fleet in known space. Our technology is predictable. Walker interrupted. Energy weapons, shield frequencies, quantum communications, you've all developed along the same lines. But out beyond the Great Void, humanity took different paths. Thompson brought up new images, the internal schematics of their warships. Council weapons specialists gasped at the complexity, the alien approaches to physics and engineering they showed. We didn't develop energy weapons because we found better options, Thompson explained. We didn't focus on shields because we learned to avoid being hit altogether. Every time you thought you were containing us, we were studying you. Dr. Wells stood, her voice firm. But we're not here for revenge. We're here to change things. She waved her hand, and the threatening images of warships were replaced by others. Medical technologies, terraforming systems, new types of engines. The same advanced science that had created their weapons, but turned to peaceful purposes. "These are copies of the technologies we brought on our colony ships," she said. "The ones you thought were primitive. They can heal any injury, turn dead worlds into gardens, power cities without pollution. This is what we wanted to share 2 years ago." The council chamber erupted in excited whispers. The technical specifications on display showed advances that would change life for billions of beings. "Here are our terms," Walker said, raising his voice over the noise. "First, no species will ever be enslaved again, no matter how primitive they might appear. Second, we want unrestricted access to council space, not as subjects, but as equals. Third, we will share our technology with any species that proves they'll use it peacefully." Marcus looked around the chamber, seeing the mix of fear and hope on the faces of his fellow council members. "And if we refuse, then we leave," Thompson said simply. "Take our people, our ships, our technology, and go back beyond the void. But we also take the knowledge of your location, your strengths, and your weaknesses. And next time there's a conflict, you won't get a warning shot." The room fell silent. The choice was clear. Accept humanity as equals and embrace a future of shared progress, or risk them returning as enemies. Marcus looked at the humans' faces, not conquerors demanding surrender, but people offering a chance to turn a mistake into an opportunity. Their weapons could have taken revenge, but their hearts sought peace. He stood, his crystalline form glowing with the traditional colors of agreement. "We accept your terms. Welcome to the Galactic Council, as equals." 1 month after the negotiations, Admiral Ross stood at his familiar spot on Border Station 7, watching the changes unfold. The station had become a hub of activity, with ships from every council species coming to meet the humans and learn from them. Through the main viewport, he watched a human medical ship teaching council doctors how to use their healing technology. The device that could regrow lost limbs had already changed thousands of lives. Nearby, a human engineering team was upgrading the station's power core, replacing the old fusion system with something cleaner and more powerful. "Quite a change from our first meeting," Captain Walker said, walking onto the bridge. The human captain had become a regular visitor, overseeing the technology sharing program. Ross turned, noting how his crew no longer tensed up when humans entered the bridge. "I keep thinking about those colony ships," he said. "How different things could have been if we just listened to them in the first place." Walker smiled. "The past is done. What matters is what we do now." He pointed out the viewport at a new ship approaching the station. It was a hybrid design. Council engineering mixed with human innovations. That's the first of the joint patrol vessels, crewed by both humans and council species. The ship was beautiful, combining the elegant curves of council design with the practical efficiency of human engineering. Its weapons were visible but not threatening, a reminder of strength rather than a display of power. "Hard to believe it was only 2 years ago that Director Reed sent those colonists to the mines," Ross said. "Have they all returned home?" "Most chose to stay, actually," Walker replied. "Not in the mines, of course. They're helping establish proper colonies on suitable worlds, teaching council scientists about terraforming. Some are even working with your engineers to improve space station designs." A group of young council officers walked past, talking excitedly with a human engineer about the new gravity control systems being installed. None of them showed any sign of the fear or suspicion that had filled the station just a month ago. "Your people adapted quickly," Ross observed. "We had to," Walker said. "Out beyond the void, we learned that survival depends on being able to change, to think differently. That's why our ships look so strange to you. We never limited ourselves to one way of thinking." The station's communication system buzzed. A message from Council headquarters appeared on the main screen. The first Joint Human Council exploration mission was ready to launch. They would be searching for other civilizations, making sure no other species faced the discrimination the humans had encountered. "There's something I've been wanting to ask," Ross said carefully. "Your weapons, your technology, you could have taken revenge, made demands, Instead, you offered peace. Walker was quiet for a moment. We had a choice to make. Use our power to punish, or use it to prevent the same thing from happening to others. The Council chose to learn from its mistake. That's all anyone can ask. Through the viewport, more ships were arriving. Trading vessels, scientific expeditions, diplomatic shuttles. The station's docking bays were full of species working together, learning from each other. Besides, Walker added with a smile, revenge is easy. Peace is harder, but it's worth it. He handed Ross a datapad. These are the latest updates to the station's systems. Your engineers should find them interesting. Ross took the pad, remembering how just a month ago, he had been terrified of these humans and their strange ships. Now they were partners, allies, teachers. The galaxy had changed, and for once, it had changed for the better. The hybrid patrol ship moved past the viewport, its human and council crew working together smoothly. Its hull bore a new symbol, a combination of council markings and human design, representing the new alliance. You know what the best part is? Walker said, watching the ship. Every time a new species joins the council now, they'll learn this story. They'll learn that appearance doesn't equal capability, that power doesn't have to mean dominance, and that it's never too late to change. Ross nodded, looking out at the busy space lanes around his station. The human warships were still out there, but they had transformed from threats into guardians, protecting the peace their peoples had built together. A new day was dawning in the galaxy, and it had all started because someone looked at a supposedly primitive colony ship and thought they knew what they were seeing. They had been wrong, and in learning from that mistake, they had all grown stronger together.